Here we go. It's playoff football. San Francisco 49ers hosting the Green Bay Packers. What do the 49ers have to do to win in the divisional round of the playoffs? It's starting to get that big game feel. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We love all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, Locked On NFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Woo! It's starting to get a little bit fun. It's getting that big game feel. Am I wrong on that one, Croc? It's starting to get a lot more heated between fans going back and forth. I love all the folks, even the Packers fans out there. There's probably some jumping in the live chat and want to talk some trash that are getting after us in the comments on YouTube, that are that are after us on social media because of the confidence that we have and the confidence that the San Francisco 49ers fans have in their football team in this game, Croc.
I'm confused as to why 49er fans, 49er content creators should not be bullish on this San Francisco 49ers team. It doesn't matter that it's the Packers. It could be the Packers, Cowboys, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Rams. I think that 49er fans would be just as confident about how they feel this game should go. Now, I think the biggest thing is, could it go another way? Of course. Could the Packers, get some balls to go, bounce their way? I talked about how in the Dallas Cowboy game, I'm pretty sure they didn't foresee Packers marching down the field, scoring a touchdown. Your next drive, you drop back, your receiver gets punked for a spot, and boom, it's an interception. And then a couple plays later, Packers are running into the end zone, and now you're down 14-0. Like, there's a scenario where that can happen for the 49ers, but I do think that it is a little bit more of a rare thing that happens to the Niners. And the odds makers out in Vegas, they are bullish on the 49ers and have them 9 or 10-point favorites. And I guess I would ask all Packer fans, why do you believe the 49ers should not be very confident? Do you think it has to do with just how they handled the Cowboys, which they did? They did beat up on the Cowboys. They did.
I think it is I almost called it the disease, the fanhood disease, the fanboy disease. It's not a disease necessarily. It's an affliction. It's something that infects you as a fan of a sport. It's why we can do this for a living, Croc. It's why we do this podcast every single day, because there's so many listeners out there, so many people that are excited about the 49ers every day throughout the offseason. We're excited about talking about the 49ers every day, whether it's team building in the offseason, whether it's regular season football, whether it's postseason playoff football. And so, fan is short for fanatics. So it's hard for some fans to hear that their team is not the best. It's hard for some fans to give credit to any other team and any other players. And a lot of fans they want to act like their 53 players on their favorite team are the best 53 players in the league, and then 54th is like Patrick Mahomes, and then 55th is Christian McCaffrey, or whoever, then you start to list the other players on the other teams, right? And so I think it's just hard for fans to be like, oh man, we're going to lose this game. Just people aren't wired that way. So it's the human condition. So that's part of it. But when you consider this football game, the 49ers are favored for a reason, and a good reason. And the Cowboys were favored for a reason. It was the 2 seed against the 7 seed. Now it's the 1 seed against the 7 seed coming into the playoffs. Does that mean that the Packers can't win against the 49ers? No, the Packers can beat the 49ers. It's just not likely, right? And that's why the odds makers, who have no skin in it, it's about money for them. They're trying to make money. They don't want to get it wrong. They think that the 49ers should be favored by 10 points. That's why it's called an upset. The 49ers are favored for a reason. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. I'm going to talk about some advanced numbers that bring that fact home for the 49ers and the Ravens, the 1 seeds in both leagues. So look, it's an upset. It would be an upset if the 49ers lost to the Packers. The 49ers are favored for a reason. That doesn't mean it can't happen. The Packers could definitely win that game, but the 49ers are going to walk out on the grass in Santa Clara on Saturday night and be extremely confident that they're going to go win that game. And all the 49ers fans walking into the stadium, Levi's Stadium Saturday night, should be completely confident that their team is going to win. And if the 49ers don't win, it will be an upset for a reason. The 49ers are the better team, have been the better team this year. We'll bring up some other numbers and we'll talk about how this game could go. But if you're a Packers fan out there, fantastic season by the Packers, got some really good players. They could go knock off another road win here in the playoffs. That's absolutely possible. It is just unlikely and would be an absolute upset if the Packers beat the 49ers because the 49ers are a better team.
I looked at some of the comments on Locked On Packers YouTube thread, and a lot of what people were saying was, man, like, why are they so confident? Like, why do they come across as arrogant and cocky? And it's like, no, we just think the 49ers are really good and that they'll win by 10 plus points. And I don't think that makes you arrogant or cocky. It's just, again, you look at Vegas and what they're saying, 9 to 10 point favorites. Like, I kind of align with that with my score prediction, which I said 31-10. That's right around that alley. Now, I know you kind of bumped it up, and part of that is us playing into our fan base against the Packers because, our fan base, they don't like Peter Bukowski. So
Peter plays such a good villain. And it's funny because some of the Packers listeners that listen to that podcast got mad at me talking about 41 points. The Niners are going to win by 21 points. I gave an extra 10 points just for Peter because I wanted to see the look on his face when I said 49ers are going to win 41 to 30 or whatever it was I said, or 41 to 20. That extra 10 points was for Peter. And I think the line is right. The 49ers should be favored by 10 points coming into this game.
Here's the thing. One, right? And when they ask, why are they so confident? Well, over the last few years, we've watched the 49ers take on a Green Bay Packer team with a Hall of Fame quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And you could not win those games going against Jimmy Garoppolo and an offense that wasn't as good, right? Like just Hall of Fame quarterback, number 1 in the NFC or number 2 in the NFC, and you still kept losing to this team. Then Aaron Rodgers said, you know what? It would be a little different playing them in if you have to go play them in the in Green Bay in those weather. So you went and you played in 0-degree weather. And you won a game where you didn't even score an offensive touchdown. You had one touchdown, and it was a block punt. Like, you couldn't even score a touchdown, and the 49ers still won the game. All right? So then now you head into this game. I understand that the Packers, and if anybody's excited about Jordan Love, like I am rooting for Jordan Love. I always love when there's a player and everybody kind of counts him out, right? Like they literally told this guy he could not play in the NFL. He was not good. He had a rocky start. I love the way he rebounded. Everything about the Jordan Love story, I love it. So I understand, like, hey, man, he's playing. He's doing some really good things out there. Loved how he looked against Dallas Cowboys. I still, heading into this game, no, hey, this overall is a 9-8 team, a team that has kind of like, weathered the storm, and they've made it into the tournament. And anytime you're in the tournament, you have a chance. But even then, it is still a 9-8 team. Like, it is still a team that they had to win 3 straight games to get into the postseason. And those 3 straight games were against like Carolina, Chicago, and a Nick Mullins-led Minnesota Vikings. Like, it's not like they continue to knock off juggernauts. Now, they do have some good wins. They do have some good wins earlier in the year. But I don't look at them and think like, oh, man, here comes Green Bay. I do look at them and say, man, I could see a scenario where they pull this out, but it's going to take a lot of things to go their way. And most teams that play against the 49ers kind of need a lot of those things to go their way. Can it happen? Sure. But like you said, if it does happen, it would be an upset. I think we'd be surprised. I think Vegas would be surprised. And a lot of people on TV would be surprised.
No doubt. Keys to victory, Croc. We're going to get to the injury report as well, which is it's a small one for the 49ers, which is another reason why I think this scenario really plays out well for the 49ers in the 1 seed at home. Well rested on Saturday, divisional round playoffs next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps you on the road, keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. You think about, NFL football and how it relates to a car. 49ers were rolling. They had a high performance vehicle. You add that supercharger, Christian McCaffrey, at the trade deadline last year. It took the performance to another level, right? Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your car on the road. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. At LinkedIn Jobs, it is not LinkedIn Jobs. It is FanDuel today. That's my bad. You got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, by the way. How about FanDuel? The regular season's over. The playoffs are here, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. It's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. App is super easy to use. Love the website interface. So many different ways to play at FanDuel, like same game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. Parlays are my favorite way to play. I love the draft props as well, and there's going to be a whole bunch more of those coming as well at FanDuel this offseason. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Got my wires crossed here, doing a little live podcast. Maybe I'm a little too excited about this football game on Saturday. Croc, my first key, or actually, let's hold off on keys to victory first, because the injury report segment is really short this week. Croc, there's two guys on it. Cleveland Farrell's not playing. Dre Greenlaw's questionable. That's it. The 49ers are full strength aside from that. And actually, one of the keys here is this rest versus rust. I don't think it's going to be a rusty situation for the 49ers. They've been really good coming off of bye weeks. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. And I think it helps the 49ers to have the rest versus, you mentioned how the Packers ended the season, and they were playing for their playoff lives at the end of the year. And now they're coming in on a short week off of a playoff game last week on a Saturday on the road, traveling to play the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't know if you saw the clip. I think it was Quay Walker. It was one of the linebackers for the Packers coming off the field after that game against the Dallas Cowboys. And it was one of those cameras that catches them, in the tunnel, walking to the locker room, and they're all excited. And I think it was Quay Walker. He's like, man, I am tired. It's like, that's the sort of the human element that we forget about too. It's like, oh, we're looking at all this and we're looking at data, and like, these aren't Madden players, right? With injuries turned off. These are human beings, and there's jet lag. You get tired. It's a long season. And I think the rest absolutely helps the San Francisco 49ers and is another sort of little extra benefit in their favor in this football game.
I think, kind of watching it and how they had to play this game, they kind of got some rest in the Cowboy game. They started to kind of ease up, call up the dogs. I started seeing some backups in at the cornerback position. Number 35, he kind of gave up some catches late in that game against the Dallas Cowboys, guarding CeeDee Lamb on the outside. And I was like, oh, you're probably not likely going to see him in over a guy like Jair Alexander. So rough game for Dallas. But I think, jumping out to that big of a lead kind of let Green Bay rest a little players, or at least mentally a little bit. Like when you just get up and the score is at some point 48-16, I think you rest a little mentally. That may help them a little bit on this short week.
DeAndre Campbell might have been the guy that said that after the game. A little tired, a little fatigued. So fatigue is definitely going to be in the 49ers' favor in this one. Well,
I like that you brought up Quay Walker and Campbell. And, they both can have their moments. And Quay Walker, he's a terrific, very athletic linebacker out of Georgia. And he was a guy that, went first round a couple years ago. But if there is one area that the 49ers really look to expose, right? It's like that second level, especially in coverage. And if you have linebackers who, one, they have to be very well-rounded. Can they cover And can they trigger against the run? 49ers really want to run certain looks to really set up the pass. So Quay Walker, Campbell are those guys that are going to react well to a lot of the run looks that the 49ers are going to give them. And so far, when you look at 49ers versus Green Bay Packers, especially, in times where they're really clicking, those are things that they really got going. And we're able to get some explosive plays off of play action and shots like that. Right now, what it sounds like, and I'm not someone that dove too much into the DVOA or these guys, PFF ratings, but it sounds to me like their second level there at the linebackers aren't their strongest area of their defense. And against the 49ers, you kind of need it to be a leader, right? You play the Baltimore. 49ers had a problem with Baltimore. Well, they got Patrick Queen. They got, the other kid out of Georgia.
Smith.
Yeah, Roquan Smith. Right, you have some terrific all-pro linebackers. And whatever they were doing kind of made it a little bit tough at times for the 49ers. I think they still ran the ball well. But just in the passing game, kind of windows, being able to, set up certain things for them, it worked. Can it work that same way for Green Bay? Because 49ers, they're really a lot of what they do is predicated off of that.
To me, it's the space that's allowed to exist in the back seven, Croc, because the biggest advantage the 49ers have on the Packers is the Packers run defense against the 49ers run game. And by the way, you brought up DVOA, and I do have some DVOA numbers here. And the 49ers have been, obviously one of the better offenses in the NFL. Number 1, according to DVOA, and number 4 on defense. So top 5 on both sides of the ball. And by the way, you guys got to check out the creator of DVOA. If you've ever wondered what DVOA is, and it's a value over average statistic, we had the creator of DVOA, Aaron Schatz. He's an ESPN guy. Now you can find all the DVOA stats at ftnfantasy.com. But Aaron, the creator of DVOA, was on the podcast with Matt Williamson and I on Thursday. So go check out the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. And he breaks down all of the matchups, including 49ers, Packers, and talks about why especially the two teams that just stand out above everybody else in the DVOA metric is the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers. They're both top 8 in basically our lifetimes with what they did in the regular season this year, according to DVOA. Both top 5 on both offense and defensive side of the ball, which is not easy to do. For the Ravens, they were number 1 defense by a lot, number 4 offense. The Niners were number 1 offense, number 4 defense, according to DVOA. And I do want to get into some specifics with the DVOA in this matchup a little bit, but you can go find some of the breakdowns there from Aaron Schatz, the godfather of football analytics, DVOA stuff. It's a really fun episode. So go check that out on Peacock and Williamson. But it's one of he was going back to the last Super Bowl champion for the 49ers, going back to 1989, and how good the 49ers were in the playoffs in 1989. But you look at the regular seasons, this 49ers team doesn't only stack up with 2019 and the Shanahan era 49ers. It stacks up with the Harbaugh 49ers. It stacks up with the Seifert 49ers. It stacks up with the Bill Walsh 49ers. That's how good this 49ers team is. And so the advanced metrics like this team even more than you and I, Croc. So if you want to start puffing out your chest, go look at the DVOA numbers, and it'll tell a story as well. And the Packers now, weighted DVOA is one of the stats that it weighs the more recent games more than the games that are furthest in the future. And the Packers are a lot better there because they played better in the second half of the year. The 49ers still better than the Packers, though. And Jordan Love playing out of his mind with, when you look at advanced metrics and DVOA and EPA per play and some of these. He's number 2 in the league. But who's number 1 in the league second half of the year? Is Brock Purdy. So even the really strong points of the Green Bay Packers, the 49ers are strong as well. And so there's not a lot of evidence and data, except for the Packers are hot, and you're a fan of the Packers, to expect the Packers to win this football game. Now, you still got to execute. You still got to play. But back to my original point of the back seven, the Packers have to stop the run. And it's the biggest advantage the 49ers have is their run game against the Packers' run defense. And how are the Packers going to stop the run? How are the Packers going to stop Kyle Juszczyk lead blocking in front of Christian McCaffrey with George Kittle and number 71 out in front and big Aaron Banks, running left. And how are they going to stop that, right? And do they put extra resources in doing that on the field? Well, now it's going to be wide open and tons of space on the back end for Kyle Shanahan's offense and Debo's catch and run and Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy to operate there. So if you have to sell out versus the run, you're going to be in trouble. And one thing you talked about with the way the Cowboys game went, Croc, is one of my biggest keys to victory here. And it starts at the coin flip, starts with the opening kickoff. The 49ers are going to defer. They want the ball in the second half. The Packers took the ball to start the game and went down and scored. The Packers don't want the 49ers to get a big lead early. And that's a surefire way to lose this game. So I think no matter what happens at the coin flip, I think the Packers want the ball. The 49ers want a kick. So the Packers are going to start off with the football. Can the 49ers defense start there, get the ball back, and that'll be a huge, that'll be absolutely massive for this football game. So the opening kickoff, stopping the Packers, who are almost 100% assured in my mind to start off with the football in this game, unless Kyle wants to change it up because he knows they want the ball too. So now he wants the ball to try to score first. Maybe some games and shit there, but Kyle always wants the ball in the second half, right? And so can the 49ers stop the first drive of the Packers? And that would be a big, huge first step in the 49ers win this football game.
Well, I think a big key to them being able to stop the Packers on that opening drive, we have to start kind of in the trenches. And with one of the things that Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers host, brought up is, hey, 49ers run defense has been a little suspect as of late. And I think you and I know why, right? Like for a couple games, you're missing Hargraves, you're missing Armstead. Like those are your two guys in the middle. And then really for, I want to say maybe the whole second half of the year, like where was Eric Armstead? Like he was hurt that entire time. Well, you just read off the 49ers injury list and it didn't include Hargraves. It did not include Armstead. So you're getting two of the guys who are just really suited to kind of stop some of the things that haven't been working in the 49ers' favor. You get those guys back. They're healthy. They're ready to go. And I think that's going to be a key victory to not only stopping the Green Bay Packers on the first drive, but hopefully kind of stifling a lot of what they want to do throughout the game. I think Aaron Jones running the rock the way he did against the Green Bay Packers, I think that did for him what CMC does for Brock Purdy. It took a lot of pressure off of him feeling like he has to be perfect. And then, hey, when there's plays to be made, make some plays. And all right, let's keep this going. You're up really big. You kind of get in this kind of relaxed state. And boom, you're on cruise control. You're ready to go, and you're making some plays. And I mean, Love made some throws, but I think a lot of it was off of, hey, this is really easy because Aaron Jones, man, he's running this rock so well. Now I can see the field well. Now having to bite up on some of these run fakes and run actions, 49ers and Packers, they run a lot of similar things. I think that helped a lot. If you can stifle that run game from the jump because you have Eric Armstead back, who is a big piece that you've been missing, I think that does help the 49ers a lot, especially early in this game.
No doubt. Yeah. You want to have your whole playbook at your disposal and make the other team one-dimensional. And that's what happened with the Packers against the Cowboys. And the 49ers have been able to do that to a lot of teams as well this year. All right. More keys to victory next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS at PrizePicks. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks in the pool, it's all you against those numbers, those stat projections at PrizePicks. You pick more or less on up to 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. We're talking winning up to 25 times your money if you hit all 6 of your player stat projections on the more than or less than of each of those stats. You can turn $10 into $250. And just a couple of taps to place your entry. It is super fun. It is super easy. And it's always fun to win a little bit of extra scratch as well, especially if you get hitting the overs on a bunch of your 49ers PrizePicks players, right? Basketball season here as well. You can make combo bets, football plus NBA bets. So tons of fun to be had at PrizePicks. And all you got to do to get in on it is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app or go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, that is code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, so we've got past the opening kickoff. We've gotten past the opening drives. What the 49ers need to do, scoring first always helps. And the 49ers have been really good on their opening drives. Can they limit the Packers when they do get the ball first and, start winning that first half field goal or field position? Field goal, Freudian slip there, because field goal, that like special teams, that's one of my keys to victory here for the 49ers. And it is, don't make the rookie have to win the game with the field goal, right? Don't even, like, it's a 10-point line, win by more than 10 points. Don't make it so one call at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, the referees aren't going to be the biggest factor in the 49ers winning or losing this game late. And don't put it on the leg of your young kicker. Not that you don't believe he can't make the kicks, but just don't make it that close. So that's one of the keys to victory for me. A muffed punt, whatever kind of weird stuff that could happen on special teams, a kick, a bad call from a referee, a hold that doesn't get called when you're trying to make a big third down stop, an offensive pass interference that you want called that is a big play for the other team that you're blaming the ref after the game instead of your football team. Don't even make it that close. Don't put it in the hands of the referee. Don't put it in the hands of the kicking game.
Now, I definitely agree with that. And, we've talked about even some of these games that got close. Mentioned the Cleveland Browns game and how it came down to a field goal. And a lot of people are like, well, Brock Purdy kind of did his job. And it's like, well, Brock Purdy did, but didn't, because ultimately some of the mistakes early in the game led to you having to put your rookie kicker out there, which you would hope and assume that he would make the kick, but he didn't. So right now I have zero confidence that Moody, in that type of situation where the game is kind of on the line and it depends on him to make a kick, I don't have the most confidence in his ability to do that right now. So I definitely agree with you on, hey man, like in this Packers game, don't let it have to come down to a field goal. I think one other thing that definitely needs to be a key to victory is Mike Quinn here. He says our defense needs to tackle, but we can't give up big plays, and we need to take them down when you have a chance for tackle for loss in a short game. And I would say most people would say, yeah, you just need to tackle. But that has been a big issue for the 49ers the second half of the season, just not tackling well. And it kind of got like progressively worse throughout the second half of the season. So definitely that needs to be a key to victory, like really tackling very well early in this game. Don't let guys like Jaden Reed get out in space, make guys miss, pick up, 5 to 10 more yards than what he's supposed to be getting. You can't have, I want to say one game they had 17 missed tackles like that. That's crazy, right? You can't let those type of things happen. So that should definitely be a key to victory. Shout out to Mike Quinn for that. You have to tackle well.
We went through the missed tackle numbers every game of the year. I think it was before the Ravens game, or maybe it was after the Ravens game. The Ravens game, the 49ers were okay as far as missed tackles, but in the 3-game losing streak against who the 49ers lose to, the Bengals, the Vikings, and especially the Browns, the 49ers missed a lot of tackles in those 3 games, and it kind of spiked. And then they had the bye week. Then they got better. Steve Wilkes came down to the sideline. The 49ers were rolling again. Like, okay, this is the best team in the NFL again. And then the week before the Ravens game, the 49ers missed a season high, I think 16 tackles in that game against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals weren't good enough to take advantage of it. Would the Packers be good enough to take advantage of it? They're a better team than the Cardinals. So when you look at the paths that the Packers could use to win the game, their run game against the 49ers run defense would be one of them. Now, I think the 49ers have an even bigger advantage with their run game against the Packers run defense, but that's one of the paths to victory for the Packers. You got to tackle, you got to be able to stop the run and get a lead, and then make then really put pressure on Jordan Love. And that's obviously a key. That's the way the 49ers play, and that's not going to be any different in this game. And then you look at the other paths to victory for the Packers, and we saw it with the Dallas Cowboys. Like, don't throw pick sixes, don't throw interceptions, especially early in the game, to give the opposing team early, free, easy points. So when you look at the Packers' paths to victory, how this could go bad for the 49ers, they can't tackle, they can't stop the run from the Packers. Packers get a lead, they're able to, throw and run and have their whole playbook at their disposal. And Brock Purdy's, throwing interceptions and pick sixes, and I wouldn't expect that to happen, which is why I think it's so unlikely the Packers are able to win this game. I just don't think all of those things are going to happen against this 49ers team.
I think a key to victory for the 49ers should be to keep the pressure off of Brock Purdy, but not in the way that most fans think, right? When you look at stats and things like that, and I see this going around, it's like, oh, you got to pressure him and all that. And it's like, well, he's number one against the pressure in the NFL. Like, what are you talking about? Well, for me, with Brock Purdy, it's not so much the actual like pass rush pressure, it's the pressure of the game. Just putting him in situations where, hey, if I don't make this throw, are we in trouble? Right? Because again, I've talked about some of those games, whether it was the Cleveland Brown games, and we didn't even talk about, oh, well, got down the field. It's like, yeah, luckily, because there was an interception dropped like on that drive, one of the opening plays of that last drive. And again, you can't use that against them, but just the pressure, what it did, there were some throws in that game that kind of got away from them or were in harm's way. You look at the Vikings game, while likely concussed, but through multiple interceptions. You look at the Cincinnati Bengals game in a clutch spot. Like, what happened? Multiple interceptions, and then another interception. They say, oh, no, got rough in the passer, so bring it back. Then he fumbled the next play, right? So, and then you go to the Ravens game. Was it just the pressure of guys in his face? I don't know, but it felt more like, oh, man, 3 interceptions in the first half, where it's like, that's not really Brock-like, but it's like, well, Brock's typically not in that type of pressure of a situation where it feels like, it's a little tense. So a lot of people are saying, oh, you got to pressure him. But for me, it's pressure him if I'm them in a game that's really close, and now the 49ers have to depend on him to make the play, the throws, to actually win the game. And if I'm the 49ers, I want to keep him out of that situation if at all possible. So keep the pressure off of him, not from the pass rush, but just the pressure of the actual moment.
Last one here, and in the chat about the rain, talk about the potential rain that might influence the offenses and any insight on how wet conditions could impact either defense. In wet conditions, footing is a problem. So you never know how that's going to exactly affect any individual player, the line of scrimmage, cutting and things like that. But, the real worry for the 49ers, and we saw it in Cleveland, would be, Brock Purdy not being able to throw the football extremely well. We saw the conditions be so much different for Tua versus Patrick Mahomes in that wild card game with the Dolphins and the Chiefs. And the Chiefs were able to throw it, and the Dolphins were not. And it's not going to be a torrential downpour or anything. But I'm looking at the forecast right now, and the latest forecast does show rain probably during the game, but light rain. Most of the rain might be just before kickoff, and maybe tapering off by around 6 p.m., but it could stay light rain throughout the game. That's the latest. It's kind of changed a little bit. It looked like maybe it would rain Friday, Sunday, and not Saturday. Now it looks like it will rain Saturday, but not a lot. But those conditions help the Packers. You don't want anything weird. You want to be able to play them straight up. So I don't think it's a big problem for Brock Purdy throwing the football in the rain, but there was some weird throws against the Cleveland Browns. So it's not nothing either for his ability to throw in the rain. But I think the 49ers' first game plan, no matter if it's perfect conditions in a dome, in a torrential downpour, is to run the heck out of the ball and see if those Packers can stop it. And I'm not sure if they can.
We got Mr. Antonio Baker in the chat, and he says his butt played a damn because I'm trying not to curse, man. Rain last year versus Seattle in Levi Stadium in the postseason. Do you remember that game being like, was there like maybe like a light rain or anything? I didn't remember it being anything that like stood out to me. Like I was in Chicago week 1 last year when Trey Lance played. Like, you want to talk about rain? Like there was rain, like that was real rain. It was like torrential downpour. And really for a lot of that game, even when there wasn't the torrential downpour, there was kind of like rain falling. Do you remember any elements really in this Seahawks game? Because I don't remember seeing like, oh, it's coming down. Even the Browns game that you mentioned, like to me, it was like, oh, it's raining. Like you could clearly see it. You could see its effect on the game. I don't quite remember that from the Seattle game.
There's been some other games, a little bit of rain, but it's got to be pretty wet to have a big impact on a football game. Football is a bad weather sport anyway, and so I just don't think it's going to be a huge factor in this one because I don't think it's going to rain that hard. But any little bit could help. If it's just one, it could be one play. If just kind of the ball slips out on one, it's a bad throw that could turn into an interception. That could turn into a huge play. But likely, I don't think it's going to rain hard enough to be a huge deterrent to anything for either one of these teams.
Yeah, typically if it rains the way that when you hear just rain, that definitely does equal kind of the playing field. There, weird things are liable to happen. Can you go back to that week 1 Chicago game? 49ers had, an opportunity inside the red zone and Deebo Samuel gets hit. Boom, the ball squirts out of his hands. You fumble when it looked like you're heading into score, right? Like, So you had some weird things that happened that allowed a team that, they just weren't good, right? Chicago wasn't good, but they were able to have some things go their way, guys running around, slipping, falling, quarterback getting hit, while going, and boom, all of a sudden it has changed the whole dynamic of a game. And if it does come down like that this Saturday, which we don't anticipate, that can definitely make things more ideal to where right now it's a 9.5, 10 point spread. I would cut that completely in half if there are elements that kind of work to leading things, because that's when just weird things happen. They do.
Mexico, a little bit of rain last season. Lee in the chat says, I don't remember any big rain games. I remember Cleveland being rainy, and I remember Chicago last year. I don't remember any other games where I was like, oh, these are bad conditions. And so we'll see what the conditions are for the 49ers and the Packers Saturday night. 49ers, don't beat yourselves. The 49ers are a better football team. They're favored for a reason. It'll be an upset if the Packers win, so don't allow them to do that to you. That is the key to victory.
Hey, and I've been talking a lot of trash on Twitter, so they definitely can't let Green Bay win. I told them I'm bringing out the video, and everybody knows what video I'll talk about.
Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen. Check out the latest Peacock and Williamson NFL show talking about these divisional matchups with the creator of DVOA, Aaron Schatz. Is a really fun conversation talking about how good the 49ers were this year, according to the DVOA metric, and what exactly the DVOA metric even is, if you've always been wondering that. So check that out. Croc and I will be back post-game to break all the playoff football down right here. Locked On 49ers.